in the hidden depths beneath the pixelated surface of Minecraft, an unseen story unfolded. A vast, shadowy valley broke through the very bedrock, holding the game's reality together. This subterranean expanse stretched endlessly, a chasm leading those daring enough to the ominous void that lay beneath. But alongside the precarious edge of this bottomless abyss, a solitary red orb hovered ominously. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness. It was as though the universe itself held its breath, anticipating an event long foretold but shrouded in mystery. Then, with a sudden and bone-chilling force, a dark red, enchanted item emerged from the void. A book of pure malevolence and corruption. It collided with the red orb, and in an unholy union, the two fused into a sinister entity. The crystal began to tremble, its crimson glow intensifying as an otherworldly, demonic power coursed through its form. Unexpectedly, the crystal, now corrupted, shifted its position, rolling through the underground caves, before stopping as it hovered over a pool of molten lava. The unholy combination between the malevolent book and the crystal began to manifest a sense of impending doom within the world. But within the core of this malevolence, a flicker of resistance ignited. The crystal, infused with a sense of self-preservation, fought back against the encroaching darkness. It writhed in agony, bleeding out its vibrant red hues like a wounded beast. In a sudden burst of defiance, the crystal expelled the darkness that had captured it. Yet, in this act of self-purification, the crystal's essence was drained, and its once glorious power was extinguished. The expelled malevolence fused with all that power as they became a liquid embodiment of evil strength. Before, together, they seeped into the surroundings, weaving through the underground realm. Swiftly, it found its way into the subterranean water systems, navigating the passages with a sinister purpose. And so, over the passing days, this tainted elixir wound its way through the dark veins of the underground, flowing with malevolent intent. Unbeknownst to the world above, it travelled relentlessly, an evil current ready to surface and unveil its wicked plan. Finally, after its long journey, the malevolent concoction emerged into the surface, reaching into a desolate mangrove swamp. In the murky depths of that mangrove swamp, a lone, subscribed tadpole glided through the water, blissfully unaware of the malevolence that lurked within those waters. Suddenly, a surge of power and corruption seized the unsuspecting tadpole, twisting and contorting its form. In an instant, the tadpole underwent a grotesque metamorphosis. Its body convulsed in agony as it grew rapidly, and a painful echo of croaks escaped its now developing throat. The transformation was violent, marked by copious bleeding that tainted the water crimson. But despite the excruciating pain, the power of that crystal surged through the now grown-up frog, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. The creature's eyes turned a sinister shade of green as the pressure of the malevolent force coursed through his veins. And as the transformation neared completion, the swamp began to echo with the frog's anguished cries. The creature, now demonic in appearance, bore the scars of its painful transformation. Its skin, stained with the blood that had flowed through him during the metamorphosis, told a gruesome tale of the unholy fusion that had occurred. Overwhelmed by this ordeal, the frog had no choice but to succumb to unconsciousness. The waters around him echoing with the eerie silence of its momentary defeat. When the blood frog finally awoke, the swamp seemed different. The demonic energy that had ravaged his body had stabilized, leaving the creature in a state of enduring pain. Yet, at this moment, he felt a semblance of control. The bleeding had ceased, but the blood that had once covered his form remained, an unending mark of the malevolent transformation. Stained and altered, the frog rose from the water, now a grotesque embodiment of the malevolence that had taken root within his soul. The once innocent tadpole had become a creature of darkness, forever marked by the corrupted fusion of power and corruption. He was now the Blood Frog, and as the Blood Frog emerged from the watery depths of the swamp, his eyes glowed with an unnatural green intensity. The once lush mangrove swamp that surrounded him began to shift and warp, the vibrant greens quickly transforming into a sinister shade of red. The very essence of the corrupted crystal pulsated within the blood frog, casting an ominous shadow over its surroundings. And so, driven by a sudden and insatiable hunger for the blood of its own kind, the blood frog's focus shifted to the frog spawn scattered throughout the swamp. With a demonic intensity, it began devouring the young life of its fellow frogs, the once serene waters now darkened by the disturbing feast. Frogs, innocent creatures of the swamp, attempted to mount a defense against the encroaching terror. However, their attempts were futile, as their croaks turned to desperate cries, and their webbed feet only kicked up ripples of resistance. But the blood frog, fueled by the dark power coursing through his veins, was relentless. The swamp became a battleground, but it was a one-sided massacre, as the blood frog wielded newfound powers that the other frogs were unable to compete with. He moved with unnatural speeds, a blur of malevolence, making any attempt to thwart his rampage impossible. The other frogs, overwhelmed by the sheer force of the blood frog's onslaught, found themselves powerless to protect their kin. Thousands of frog spawns were devoured in just that day, the life force within them consumed by the insatiable hunger of the blood frog. Countless frogs fell victim to his malevolent might, their once peaceful homes now transformed into a scene of chaos and death. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie red glow across the swamp, the blood frog's reign of terror showed no signs of stopping. This was just the beginning. A nightmare that would leave the once thriving mangrove swamps forever scarred by the presence of the evil blood frog and its insatiable thirst for the blood of frogs. And so, in the sinister aftermath of its malevolent transformation, the blood frog began to discover some new abilities within his soul that seemed to defy the very laws of nature, as he learned to move with an agility beyond comprehension, leaping to seemingly impossible heights, and then being able to glide through the air with an almost otherworldly grace. The once innocent creature soared through the tainted skies, its malevolent powers linked back to the dark fusion of the red crystal and that corrupted book. The blood frog, now an airborne harbinger of doom and destruction, cared for only one thing: the blood of frogs. And he hunted them down with an insatiable thirst that just couldn't be stopped. And so, over the ensuing years, the blood frog's insidious campaign continued, and the swamp became a battleground stained with the blood of countless innocents. His endless appetite led to the consumption of billions of frog spawns, leaving the once lively swamps eerily quiet. Surviving frogs, gripped by fear, tried to protect their offspring by laying eggs in hidden sanctuaries, from caves to underneath trees to anywhere else where they hoped that the blood frog's malevolent senses wouldn't reach. Yet, his relentless pursuits knew no bounds, for he could smell the very essence of life from the frog spawns, and so he was able to track down their hiding places. The sanctuaries, meant to shield the eggs, proved to be futile against the blood frog's insidious prowess. As the once thriving population of frogs dwindled, the blood frog's focus shifted from the unborn lives to the living. The swamp echoed with the desperate croaks of the doomed as the blood frog, fueled by an unholy thirst for the blood of his own kind, descended upon them. Millions fell victim to his malevolence, their croaks forever silenced in the face of this demonic predator. The terror inflicted by this force plunged the once lively Minecraft swamps into a state of chaos, with the frogs resorting to peculiar behaviors for their survival, as they began to seek refuge in the villages, hiding in their water supplies and praying for their safety. Now, the villagers were really confused, as this was happening all over the world and no one understood why. And so, rather quickly, news of this strange phenomenon reached the Steve, prompting him to embark on a quest to unravel the mystery behind the frog's unusual actions. Armed with his trusty tools and weapons, Steve explored the many mangrove swamps within his world, hoping to discover the truth behind the amphibians' sudden change in behavior. But, despite his best efforts, the swamps remained eerily silent, devoid of the familiar croaks that once filled the air. But still, Steve pressed on as he navigated the tangled vegetation and murky waters in search for an answer. He went deeper and deeper, looking for the frogs, thinking that maybe they were hiding underwater. And while that might not have been the case entirely, he did eventually stumble upon a concealed entrance leading into an underwater cave. And so, intrigued, he descended into the dark abyss, and within that cave, he found them. As the Steve discovered a hidden sanctuary, untouched by the malevolence that gripped the swamp above. This cavern seemed to be teeming with life, as frog spawn lay on the water in abundance, with hundreds of frogs standing along the edge of that cave. Steve marveled at this oasis, when suddenly the atmosphere shifted. To his surprise, the once peaceful frogs attacked him with an unexpected aggression. Bewildered, Steve defended himself against this sudden assault, raising his shield in an attempt to not hurt these beings. But rather quickly, it became clear that these frogs weren't attacking out of malice, but rather out of fear. And so, because of that, the frogs, realizing that there was nothing to be fearful of with this Steve, they stopped their attacks. And so, in the ominous silence that followed the sudden frog's assault, Steve's confusion only deepened. Why was this happening? The once lively cave now echoed with a chilling stillness. It was as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. And then, without warning, the frogs fell silent, cowering in the corners. They were sensing an imminent threat. A sinister presence loomed in the shadows, and before Steve could even comprehend what was happening, the blood frog emerged from the darkness. In a swift and brutal onslaught, he massacred the other frogs and devoured all their spawn, leaving only a trail of death in his wake. Before Steve could even react, the blood frog had vanished, leaving only the haunting echoes of his malevolence behind. Shock and determination filled Steve's eyes as he now understood that this strange blood frog was the source of the havoc and the malevolent force responsible for the devastation that had fallen upon the once thriving swamp and had made the frogs act in these strange ways. And so, with an unwavering resolve, Steve realized that to fix these problems, he needed to eliminate this beast and put an end to its reign of terror. Contemplating his strategy, Steve hatched a daring plan as he embarked on a mission to gather thousands of tadpoles in buckets, meticulously freezing them to eliminate any source of their scent, which he hoped would prevent the blood frog from finding them. At this time, thousands of frozen tadpoles became the tools in his calculated scheme, and so, after doing that, he then entered the heart of a swamp, where he began to work tirelessly to dig a deep pit with a perilous floor of dripstone, an ingenious yet deadly trap designed to ensnare the blood frog. And then, over the death trap, he built a fake floor, camouflaging the danger that lurked beneath. And above that, he constructed a camouflage prison from leaves and glass and logs. And then, in the center of this deceptive stage, he built a tank, where he then arranged the frozen tadpoles within them, patiently awaiting for their inevitable transformation. As time passed, the frozen tadpoles thawed, and rather quickly they grew up into frogs, oblivious to the fact that they were the bait. As then, very carefully, Steve constructed a path leading from the swamp to that pool of unsuspecting frogs, an enticing lure for the blood frog's insatiable appetite. Now, in the shadows of the swamp, Steve lay in waiting. The air was tense with anticipation as he prepared to confront the malevolent force that had plagued the frogs. The trap was set, and the fate of the blood frog seemed grim as Steve was ready. The stage was set, and the swamp echoed with a quiet but ominous expectancy. As night fell over the desolate swamp, the ominous silence was shattered by the arrival of the blood frog. It approached the seemingly harmless pool of frogs, its malevolent eyes fixated on the prey. Unbeknownst to the blood frog, a deadly trap awaited him as it carelessly stepped on a concealed pressure plate. With a sudden and chilling plummet, the blood frog descended into the ground, hurling towards the ominous dripstone below. A sense of victory flickered in Steve's eyes as he anticipated the demise of this malevolent creature. However, to his astonishment, the blood frog defied gravity, gliding through the air with an unnatural grace. But Steve, undeterred by the unexpected turn of events, swiftly unleashed a barrage of arrows. The blood frog, momentarily halted by the onslaught, abandoned his airborne invasion and collided with the dripstone below. The impact dealt serious damage, but against all odds, the blood frog survived the deadly fall. And so, undeterred by the injury, the blood frog rebounded with a powerful leap, only to discover a concealed ceiling that had him trapped here in this confined space. The blood frog was confused. Nothing had been able to stop him so far, and so this just can't be happening. Steve seized the opportunity of confusion and continued his relentless assault, each arrow finding its mark on the injured form of this beast. The blood frog, caught in the deadly dance between leaps and falls, endured a relentless barrage of attacks. The swamp echoed with the clash of titans as the battle unfolded. Steve's calculated shots piercing the air, and the blood frog retaliating with his frenzied tongue attacks. The atmosphere was charged with tension as each jump, each shot, each subscribe button, and each fall into the unforgiving dripstones exacted a toll on both combatants. The blood frog, writhing in immense pain, showed signs of weakness. Its once dominant presence now wavered under the relentless onslaught. Steve, battered and bruised by the blood frog's vicious counterattacks, pressed on, determined to vanquish the malevolent force that had plagued the land. The fight raged on for several minutes, a symphony of chaos and desperation echoing through the swamp. The outcome remained unclear, as the blood frog, trapped and wounded, struggled to maintain its malevolent domain, while Steve, fueled by the spirits of the swamp, fought valiantly to restore balance to the once harmonious realm. And then Steve descended deeper and deeper into that pit as he confronted the blood frog with a swift and calculated strike of his sword. The once menacing creature lay lifeless on the cold, unforgiving ground. He was dead now, and his reign of fear should finally be over. However, As Steve approached, a foul odor emanated from the blood frog's remains, and then a mysterious glow enveloped the lifeless body. And to Steve's amazement, a red book emerged from the frog's form. The blood frog's corpse began to convulse violently, shaking before Steve's eyes. In an inexplicable turn of events, the lifeless body descended through solid blocks, leaving Steve in a state of confusion, as that really just shouldn't be possible. But shaking off the perplexity, Steve redirected his focus to the enigmatic red book hovering before him. However, as he approached, an unforeseen bolt of lightning struck the book. Despite the absence of any storm, the air cracked with an otherworldly energy. Steve was left with a lingering sense of unease. With the blood frog defeated and the strange book vanished, Steve turned his attention to the pit's edge. The once menacing swamp now echoed with the sounds of nature, signaling the return to normalcy for its amphibian inhabitants. And life for the frogs resumed its harmonious course, free from the malevolence that had plagued their habitats for the last few years. Steve, his task accomplished, made his way home. For the mysteries of the blood frog and the red book lingering in his thoughts, leaving him with more questions than answers. The swamp, now bathed in the soft glow of the moon, stood as a testament to the bravery of Steve, who had restored balance to a world momentarily overshadowed by darkness. And as he journeyed back, the night embraced him, whispering tales of adventures yet to unfold in the vast and unpredictable landscape of the Minecraft world. But this isn't the end of the story just yet, as deep beneath the surface of the overworld, the lifeless form of the blood frog, once a harbinger of darkness and corruption, embarked on an unexpected journey. Its remains traversed the underground labyrinth, weaving through the very fabric of the game's reality, until it finally returned to the source of its power, the enigmatic white orb. As the blood frog's body fused back into that orb, a profound transformation begun. This, it seemed, was not a mere demise, no, but instead was a purification ritual, a cosmic effort to remove the corruption that had birthed the malevolent creature. That evil book was no more, and so, with the power returned, the white orb pulsed with a newfound energy, a radiance that resonated with the essence of raw power. Yet, not all was restored, as the crystal, once a vibrant red, had lost its hue in the process of the blood frog's conversion. And so, the orb now emitted a disturbance, a ripple through the very fabric of the Minecraft universe. And very soon, those ripples would be felt as a new entity would find that orb, and the world would never be the same. And so, watch this video to learn what happened next.